working out has two main problems. The first one is the opportunity cost of time. It seems to me that a large portion of processes in reality are benefiting from compounding input. In other words, either they are linearly growing or even with a second derivative, which also then is positive. In other words, they are accelerating in progress. And now there is this big, giant acceleration technology right in front of me, and it's called artificial intelligence. I've had thousands of conversations with ChatGPT, at least according to ChatGPT. Much of what I have been doing in the last couple of years is standing in front of a desktop and moving information, ones and zeros, in the digital world. It's a cloud that exists in between all of us, almost like a manifestation of the overlap of all the human minds. The second cost, in the short term at least, even in the short to mid-term, is drain of energy. Every time I work out, afterward I enter an ultradian low. Now, if I don't work out cardiovascularly sufficiently, then an additional problem occurs. So usually, if I train in an ultradian high and then I eventually dip, but I also dip because the workout, at least if it's cardiovascularly also stressful, probably builds up adenosine, then I enter eventually an ultradian low. Now, ideally, if I want to work for the rest of the day and be cognitively somewhat able, or at least as able as I was before the workout or similarly, then in this ultradian low, I ideally go so low, which of course is now determined by a couple of factors. How much cardio did the workout have? So what I need to do in the ultradian low is to enter at least a couple of seconds, if not ideally more than a couple of seconds, of brain drainage. It's a kind of cooling effect I sense. I suspect it's mostly the reduction of adenosine in my brain that builds up the longer I am awake. This can happen in two ways, and I notice while it is happening that it is happening. But if I am awake, then it is not happening to such a degree that it restores my normal brain performance for a couple of hours. But then usually it only lasts for 1 or 2 ultradian cycles, with one ultradian cycle usually meaning around 80 to 90 minutes. Sometimes if I'm quite sleep deprived or worked out quite a little bit, in effect similar, then I even experience half ultradian phases, where after 40 to 50 minutes I'm mentally quite drained. And I can also hear this. I can hear how the brain waves in my head change. It's a different structure-born sound. Maybe it's also an increase in perception of this sound if I am not mentally focused on something else. So ideally, I therefore work out cardiovascularly with every single workout so much that in the ultradian low, I not only awake, have adenosine drainage, but also I actually fall asleep for a couple of seconds, for a couple of minutes, or maybe even one full ultradian cycle. But of course, such a long sleep then eventually, if it happens again and again, interferes with my circadian alignment. Working out just takes energy out of the day. But